Carolina with Roy Williams retiring.
Maybe he's waiting for Krzyzewski.
Maybe he's just waiting on Duke. I don't know. I doubt it though. I really do doubt it. I think that, Brad strikes me as the kind of guy that wants to get this done here, that wants to finish the job that he started. And
Sure.
I am still a believer in him. I am. I'm not calling for his head or anything like that. I still think that you have one of the brightest minds in terms of coaches in the NBA. But obviously a bright mind is only going to take you so far. You need to be a motivator. And Brad, post-game last night was about as heated as we have ever heard him. And I know he has said in the past, the way I sound to you guys isn't necessarily how I sound in that locker room. I remember him saying that to Gary Washburn once. So I'm sure, no, he's not going to throw things and curse probably, but I'm sure he is yelling at his players and taking them to task. We don't get to see that, and we certainly don't see it on the sidelines. Is there, in your estimation, a motivational issue stemming from Brad on down? Is there something that is just not clicking from the coaching staff, absent, that Walter McCarty kind of caliber? I know they added Evan Turner, but they don't have that sort of like hard-nosed veteran guy that like a perk, like guy that you're scared of on the coaching staff, that is really gonna like rein these guys in, who, unlike Brad, has been through the ropes. I know Brad's been coaching a long time, but he hasn't been an NBA player through those rigors. So is there something missing here that needs to be addressed to get these guys in line?
I think that's a good point. That I think the players have become a little hard-headed, and maybe they're not hearing as much. I know Gary got a lot of heat for writing the players have tuned out Brad column, but I think there's a certain amount of that. I mean, when all you know is going to the conference finals, maybe you get to a point where you don't hear people as much. You've been there. You think you've been there. And so I think part of that really falls on the players, but I think there is a disconnect right now. Absolutely.
Part of it, I think, is everything that we just talked about. But what about, like, I'll have friends text me, Mark, regularly during these games, like last night, where they just fall down by 1 billion and then claw their way back and fall just short. These almost wins that people are having a field day tweeting about. And like I said off the top, it's just so much easier when your team just gets crushed rather than giving you that false hope. It feels like they're, a lot of the time, and maybe it's player execution, but who else can you blame but the players? They're the ones with the ball. When you look to the coaching staff, though, and Brad in particular as the leader of the group, does it look like they're absent a plan out there a lot of the time to you? If Brad can't get them to defend, and offensively, all the ISO ball that we were talking about, and they're not moving it, and it just seems like they don't trust each other, and they're not really running plays. They're just kind of firing up threes, not going to the hole, not going to the free throw line like Evan was talking about. I mean, now we're getting into the system. Now it's not even a motivational issue. It's not a mental issue. Now it's a game planning issue. Is there something wrong with the game planning that you're seeing this season?
Yeah, he keeps saying he's going back to ball movement. He keeps saying that he's getting more cutting into the offense, and it just doesn't happen. They'll play one great game like that, and then it disappears again. And all of a sudden you see ISO ball. So not sticking to that, I think part of that is obviously going to be on the coach. That's, it's, you call a timeout if you see that, you guys are suddenly in an icicle, and you snap him out of it. He doesn't do enough of that.
Yeah, he's always been criticized for that, like taking way too long to take timeouts and letting runs kind of build and fester, and not trying to use the timeout to stop the momentum of the other team. But like the problem is, you call the timeout anyway, it's too late, and then you get some bungled play and like normally like the ATO stuff was normally the bread and butter of the Celtics. Like call a timeout, you get a play running out of it, and all of a sudden, all right, you start feeling good about yourself. But and again, I don't have the stats in front of me. I'm sure people out there do. And if you happen to have the statistic, I'd love to see it. Like what the success rate of Celtics out of timeouts are this year. Because again, it doesn't feel, this group doesn't feel as connected. And that does, again, fall back on Brad. And you see it more, I think, on the defensive side of the ball, where this team just doesn't communicate nearly as well as they should. I've been noticing, and I know people are like, oh man, you're just talking about energy, but this team lacks energy. I mean, last night, off the top of the game, they don't have Rob Williams. I get that. But like, okay, you still have Tatum, Brown, Kemba, Fournier, Smart. Like, it's not like you're depleted. You still have a lot of talent. And they start the game very lethargically. You have, the Mavs get up sort of big. You talked about a couple of shots that Luka hits that are out of this world because Luka's an out of this world player. And this team drags their head and they run some BS offensive set that doesn't do anything. They go back down the other end and they don't play good defense. But then they get back into with their defense a little bit. They make a run towards the end of the first quarter. And you think things are, but they just can't seem to string things together. And, part of that's on the players and part of that's on the coach. And I think, Brad's is as frustrated as anybody else in terms of what's going on here. But when you have disconnects defensively like this team has had, especially when you go back to past years and they've just been, it didn't matter who the hell was on the floor. This team was good defensively. I mean, you go back to having like Jay Crowder, Kelly Olynyk, Marcus Smart, Isaiah Thomas. You go back to any one of these teams and, collectively as a unit, they play well defensively. At least they would have that to hold their hat on. Like, yeah, they wouldn't, shoot the lights out every night. Nobody expects that. But defensively, the effort was there. I just don't see, the effort looks bad. The effort looks off. The chemistry looks off. The energy looks off. Unless things are perfect. Unless, like, you saw it the other night when, they played Milwaukee the night they won, right? You saw much better energy to start the game. Fournier, the trade has been, passed and he's coming shortly, right? They have their starting five of Kemba, Jalen, Jason, Marcus, and Rob. Like, the conditions were perfect and everything seemed to work. But when things aren't perfect, this team seems to have some reason, like they're stuck in the mud or something. I can't quite explain it. And that, when you want to blame Brad for stuff, I will blame Brad for this team lacking mental focus.
Sure.
So you want to say the hospital Celtics are flatlining this year?
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think they're incredible front runners. When things are going great, they're great. The moment things turn, they just tuck it in. It's, anybody can hit baskets when you're on the end of a 12-0 run, but it's when you guys hit one of those droughts that Brad was referring to that, they just lose confidence.
It's like they quit.
I really don't know where that comes from because they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the last 4 years. So they know the right way to play. It's, it's just that responsibilities have shifted maybe, they thought that a veteran like Tristan Thompson would sort of keep everybody in line, but he hasn't even been part of the picture.
Get him on the floor in the first place.
No, so maybe Fournier does something. From a leadership standpoint.
Mark, do you have anything? Because I think it's been obviously refuted by Celtics players at this point about the Tristan Thompson, parties too much or it goes out. Do you have anything on that?
No, that, that was Kevin's report. I haven't heard a word about that. I just know the Celtics denials on it.
Yeah.
They've come out pretty strong about it.
Yeah.
It
included.
It must be hard this year to kind of notice stuff like that when nobody's in the locker room and, everybody's zooming in at the end of game, your press conferences, like that stuff. Yeah. It's hard to even get a read on any of that because nobody's even around.
No, that kind of access hasn't existed for a year.
Right.
So, it's, you're not there when Smart decides to start throwing chairs against the wall.
Right.
But, Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, it could be. I mean, I see just in the on-court product, I see divisions.
So Mark Murphy, let's go back to the Brad Stevens discussion for just a moment here. And again, I don't think he's gone. Evan doesn't think he's gone. I'm going to put words in your mouth. You don't think he's gone. I don't think any of us are calling for him to be gone. And please do, interrupt me if you do. But let's just have the conversation for the Fire Brad crowd that's out there and people saying, just give us someone else. This guy's overrated. He's not motivating the team. What does he really want here? And blah, blah, all the stuff that we always see on social media. He's got to go. He sucks. Now, again, I don't agree with any of that, but let's just say he's got to go. Who would you want? Now, I've had friends of mine suggest, assistant X, assistant Y, guys that either, are retreads or haven't yet had that opportunity. And who knows? I mean, like Bruce Cassidy with the Bruins, right? Like maybe somebody, gets the opportunity and they actually do run with it. And hey, this, people were skeptical, but this was the right move. I don't know who that guy is. The only guy that I can think of in the NBA that if you said to me, Brad's got to go, who do you want? The only one I can come up with that's available, obviously, because that's a big part of it for people that would get Doc. You can't have Doc.
Right.
The only guy that I can think of, Mark, is Kenny Atkinson. That's the only guy that I can think of that.
Yeah.
He did some things with the Nets with, he did a lot with a little, as Brad did for so many years in Boston before he started to do a little with a lot. That's the only guy that I can think of.
I would hesitate with him because he's a developmental guy. He, once the product matured, they get rid of him. I think you need a guy who can deal with the young stars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that was Kenny Atkinson's forte either.
Sure.
And the questions come up about how does Brad deal with stars? I mean, I know they all left for different reasons, but you've lost Kyrie, Gordon, and Horford.
Yeah.
And actually Terry Rozier.
Sure. Although Horford would come back in a second if he could.
Yeah. If he had been bought out, I wouldn't have been surprised.
Yeah, agreed.
But it's the evidence is that his high caliber players don't stick around. So I don't know if they're not buying in. Kyrie, I don't think Kyrie bought it. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
I mean, you could argue like Allen and, Al left for money, Hayward left for opportunity and certainly money, but
Hayward didn't.
Kyrie is the one that did not buy in.
But Hayward did not think this system was for him. And this is his college coach.
Did he not think the system was for him, or did he not think his place within the system?
Well, yeah, his place within the system.
Like he didn't want to be a fourth option. I don't blame him.
I just think that, they really miss what he brought.
Yeah.
I think.
That's what Fournier's supposed to be.
They were better. I don't quite get this, but they were a better defensive team with Hayward on the floor.
I get that. He's a good defensive player.
Yeah.
Good two-way player.
Yeah. That wasn't his reputation coming in, I guess. But
he's switchable though. See, that was the beauty of that team was they could switch defensively. And this team, they've always had a small point guard. So this whole notion, and Kemba, out of all the small point guards they've had, probably tries the hardest on defense. So I'll say that.
Yeah.
They just don't have, they don't have a lot of Rob is their only, and they have no consistent size. I mean, with Tice gone now, especially, they have no rim deterrent at all whatsoever. And when Rob's in there, he is an obvious rim deterrent. I mean, I know he's only 6'8" or whatever, 6'9", but his wingspan, as people have noted, is just ginormous. And his ability to block shots and time them has been, it's been Miles Turner-esque in terms of percentages, right? So, they really lack when they go small. They have no interior presence at all whatsoever.
Well, you saw last night, no Rob. 6 of Dallas's first 8 points were in the paint. They just immediately attacked, and without him, I mean, he's become so important in a short period of time. What's that?
I said, poor Mo Wagner.
Yeah, that's just not him.
No, it's not what he is.
Yeah, I mean, he's too busy planting his face on elbows. That was the most ridiculous call last night.
It's the war on Tice all over again. Like, it's just like, I don't know how many big guys got to get punched in the face, kicked in the face, elbowed in the face,
Right,
before they get a foul call. But like the best one, the Siakam kicking Daniel Tice in the face, still getting called for a foul is the most outrageous part of it. But like, Mo Wagner's not especially with Porzingis, right? Who's not the strongest 7-footer. But like, he can shoot over you. He gets bullied by Marcus Smart. Because Smart's got a better low center of gravity there. But again, they don't, like you said, 6 of the first 8 points in the paint. They have no rim deterrence. And so when you have a team, and maybe this is part of again, maybe this falls back on Danny. Again, this whole episode is about the blame game and who the hell can we throw all the blame at? Danny's part.
Welcome to April.
Yeah, right. Danny's part in this too of having a roster with no rim protection on it. Is something that we need to talk about. And I think people go back to the Miles Turner, Doug McDermott thing,
right, and
want to talk about that a lot. And Miles Turner is a great defensive player, no question, and they would definitely help right now.
Yeah.
But like, when you're getting beat to the rim constantly, that's an easy way for a team to get dejected.
Right.
You know what I mean, like you talk about guys hanging their heads. You're down 8-0. And 68 points have been layups. Like, I get that. So, you talk about schematics, you talk about roster construction, you talk about guys freelancing out there. It's all, and it gets back to Danny's quote. It's all, this blame is all shared, and it's only convoluted or magnified, I should say, because of this absolutely ridiculously crazy season Boston's having in terms of injuries. It's April 1st, and they still haven't had the availability of every guy in their roster to play in a game. I mean, the Romeo stuff is hysterical. Every week you look, it's a new thing with Romeo. Tristan's out. Jalen was out with a knee thing. Now Rob's out before the game. Tatum was scratched, a couple of games ago for ill. It's like, at some point, I would like to just have a 3-game sample size of everybody on the roster playing at the same time.
Yeah.
You're asking too much. Can't have it.
I know there's a reason that they have Kemba on that knee program, but at what point do you break him out of that and just allow him to play?
The playoffs. I mean, that's
I think he needs a little rhythm before that.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that's what their plan is. I think it's, we're not breaking the glass in case of emergency until the playoffs roll around.
Yeah.
But so just going back quick to like the Atkinson stuff and Stevens, let's just let's pretend for the sake of it that like we don't all love Brad and Brad's a great guy. Like Brad's a jerk. Let's just pretend Brad is he's a jerk. He's a terrible human being. You don't want to deal with him. Like he treats you the way Belichick treats the media. Get him gone. So removing any personal biases, right? Is there, because I always like to say, like, president of the fan club, he's a great life coach and all that stuff. Is there that guy? You said, you don't need a development guy. You need a guy who's going to be able to, work with younger, not just younger players, but veteran players. I mean, it's like, are we basically just boiling down to, because it ain't Mark Jackson. Are we talking about like pulling Jeff Van Gundy finally out of retirement? Like what are we talking? Is that guy out there, Mark?
You're looking for some kind of a young star, a guy like Lloyd Pierce, who, before he ran into trouble in Atlanta, and I don't think that was entirely his fault.
Yeah.
He was that young guy guru. When he was on the Sixers staff, he was everybody's favorite assistant coach. He was kind of a rising star. I think you need a guy like that. I don't know if that fits up here, but yeah.
Those guys don't grow on trees though. And
right.
As much as you want to, I mean, this is an April Fool's joke, but Rick Pitino could come walking through that door again if he wanted to.
And destroy the franchise for the second time.
Are
we all in agreement then? What's that?
John
Calipari, yeah.
I covered Cal the year he jumped from UMass to the Nets, and that was like, you talk about a circus. That was just crazy.
So then, and I zeroed this in on you, Mark, but are we all in agreement then that I mean, there like that guy. There's no guy out there that you would replace Brad Stevens with right now. If you could, if you were on a lame duck contract and removing all the money he's owed, is there a single guy out there you'd replace Brad with right now?
No.
And that's the thing for all you Brad haters. What do you what do you want?
Doc.
Like,
they want Doc.
They want
Bring in Doc.
Right, Doc.
Yeah, and people listen, I can't wait to watch another 3-1 lead. You know, like it's the answer to this problem is not a simple one. And you get rid of Danny. Okay, who's going to be the GM then? You're going to have what are you going to have? And I love Mike Zarin. Is Mike Zarin going to take over? Is that what we need to do, or do you need fresh blood in there? This is something we talked about with Gary Washburn. He was. There's got to be some fresh blood somewhere at some point. Has to come into this organization, have a decent amount, powerful voice to make some sort of change here. Does it come into the front office? Does it come to the coaching staff? Is it a player, a veteran that comes in and straightens these guys out? I mean, that's all the questions that Danny and ultimately Wick and Steve and everybody else that works in that ownership group have to come up with. Because this season, or do we just go, hey, this is one of the weirdest seasons in the history of the league, and we shouldn't put a lot of stock?
Wasn't that last year?
No, again, you could say this continuing into this year is
it's almost like it's one long season.
It really is. I'll go with you on that.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, just the coaching thing, like you go back to that. I know the segment's been mainly about coaching. There's not one of those guys that's just going to magically come available. Like, what do you do? Like try and get Mark Few out of Gonzaga? We can go out of the college ranks and try and find somebody. Chris Beard just got a job with Texas.
They did that though.
Broke that news. But the good college, the only guy that I would sell out for in the college ranks of anybody is Jay Wright of Villanova. And Jay Wright's had opportunities to come to the NBA and he said no every time. So Jay Wright's not the guy to fix it either. So all of you that complain about Brad, like the other options really don't.